What is up, everybody? A little impromptu show for the night. I was supposed to go on with Roundtable Sports, NFC West Roundtable. That got canceled because a few of the hosts couldn't make it. Understandable. And then normally I would go on with Sunil, but I told Sunil, I was like, listen, my wife's out of town. I've had the kids. And of course, it's like the craziest week of all time. We've got something going on every single night, and it's just me here to take care of everything and hold down the fort. And so I told Sunil, I said, listen, man, I don't want to do two shows tonight. Like, I'm gassed. Let's just skip and push to next week. And then once the other one got canceled, I said, Sunil, let's do a show. But by then it was too late. So that being said, I figured, you know what? Got to ask me anything that I posted on the community post. There are some things to talk about with Brandon Aiyuk. I really want to decipher whether these rumors are legit, what we should expect with Brandon Aiyuk. Let's just do an impromptu show. So here we are. That's exactly what we are about to do. So we're going to start with the Brandon Aiyuk stuff first. I'm going to present you everything that is out there on social media. You can come to your own conclusion. I'll give you my opinion. And then we'll get into the Ask Me Anything portion of the show. I've got a lot of questions already lined up. If there's anything you want to ask me, you can throw it in the chat. I'll do my best to catch it. We'll see how many I can get through. But first, we got to do a proper introduction, and this is how we do it. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports. We are giving you our take down to the last second. And like I said, I'm flying solo tonight. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk, get into all of that, and then we are going to get to the Ask Me Anything portion of the show. Let's start with Brandon Aiyuk, though, because there are some things to talk about. So what I did is I just pulled tweets and rumors over the last few days, and I'm going to kind of go through them systematically. There's about 6 total tweets, something like that, 5 or 6. And we're just going to go through it. So everybody knows this was, a day or two ago, that there were rumors that Brandon Aiyuk, there was some interest from the Jaguars, Trent Baalke trying to get Brandon Aiyuk. And it was rumored that the 49ers, this was according to Mia O'Brien, who is on the beat for Jacksonville. She's in the building. So you would assume she's plugged in. She said that the 49ers wanted the 17th pick and Zay Jones, which is a really weird request on the surface. And the Jaguars said no. Too steep of a price. We're moving on. Now, I know she's in the building. I know she's plugged in. I'm not saying what she heard was wrong, but again, the Zay Jones thing to me really threw me off. Like, what is Zay Jones going to bring to the table in that trade? Like, that's the deal breaker. You know what I mean? Anybody play fantasy football, you'll know what I'm talking about, where there's always a throwaway player added. Like, maybe you're doing a 2 for 3 or, 1 for 2. Then there's the throwaway player added in your fantasy football trade, and you say, well, I really want X throwaway player, but they want to give me this person. Is that really going to be the deal breaker? I highly doubt that they were looking at it and saying, oh, Zay Jones, that's too rich. We can't give it up. Going into the conversation, they have to know that a first-round pick is exactly what the 49ers are going to ask for. So would the 49ers really ask for 17? They're like, yeah, we're on board. And then they said, well, also, we want Zay Jones. And the Jaguars like, too rich. We're out. So that whole thing was a little bit weird to me. And then also talking to Marco behind the scenes made it seem even a little bit more strange. And I'll show you what he tweeted, but these were conversations he and I had as well. He said the 49ers have no intentions of trading Brandon Aiyuk. I asked about the Jags rumor, and it was laughed off, saying nothing was ever offered or requested because the 49ers said no right away. As of right now, keywords, as of right now, they have not shopped nor taken offers from any team. Okay, so let's go to the next group. And this is where things got really twisted today. Brandon Aiyuk tweets out. And the interesting thing about Brandon Aiyuk tweeting, he doesn't tweet very often, but when he does, he usually says something you want to pay attention to. I remember he hadn't tweeted for over a year. And then last offseason, he tweeted something about being the fourth option and how it was his year to basically get paid and he was going to produce no matter what. Well, he did just that. So again, he's gone a long span without tweeting. And today he tweets at Coach Tomlin, "They say that we are twins. What do you think?" Now, on the surface, when I saw this, I laughed it off because somebody had brought it to my attention on Twitter about a month ago that they looked similar. And they do. It's actually pretty funny. Obviously, that's gotten to Brandon Aiyuk, but that's amidst rumors that the Steelers, Jags, and like one or two other teams supposedly are interested in Brandon Aiyuk. So a lot of people freaked out about that. That one by itself didn't seem like a lot. However, shout out to Brad Graham. He had tweeted something the other day about, teams calling about Brandon Aiyuk. And then it was a gif of Brandon Aiyuk kind of sweeping things to the side, like, absolutely not, we're not interested. Well, somebody had responded, Ernie, and said the Niners trying to call him and him saying nah. So like the gif of Brandon Aiyuk pushing it to the side and saying nah, he's saying that's Brandon Aiyuk to the Niners. Well, Brandon Aiyuk liked the tweet. So that's a little interesting. Okay, so we've got the Brandon Aiyuk coming out again after his family members and everything during the offseason saying, hey, right now things aren't copacetic. But then this last one here is from 49ers and NFL News 24/7, 49ers Sports Talk. Shout out to my guy. He said, breaking news. This was just a little bit ago. Breaking news. Aiyuk isn't going to show up to camp without a new deal, sources tell me. 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has not requested a trade, but wants to be paid like an elite tier receiver. Okay, he's not telling us anything we don't already know. Rumors of him asking to be traded to the Jaguars or Steelers are not true. So basically what he's saying lines up with what Marco has told me. What is true, if Brandon Aiyuk doesn't get the contract he's looking for, he is willing to hold out like Nick Bosa until he gets it. Okay, I can see that. The Niners need to pay BA and get it over with, especially before camp begins in an all-in year. Now, that last part is 100% his opinion. All right, the other part is what he's heard, and then the last part is his opinion. So I want to decipher those things. But when I look at all of the information presented, this is the read I get on the situation. Okay. Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers are in a negotiation right now. They're locked into that. Now, whether they're talking daily or his agent and the team are talking daily, that's irrelevant. They're in a negotiation phase. Like from the moment the season ends, he wants to get paid. The team wants to keep him long-term. They know that they have to pay him this offseason. Otherwise, he's not going to be happy, clearly willing to hold out. That tells me they're in that negotiation phase, right? Pretty obvious, pretty clear. So while they are in that phase, Brandon Aiyuk is going to do anything he can to try to get leverage, knowing, by the way, he has zero leverage. He's under contract. The 49ers, if they really wanted to be petty, they could make him play out his contract. They could franchise tag him next year and either try to work out a long-term deal or trade him, and then do the same thing the very next year if they really wanted to. Now, the 49ers don't do business like that, so that's likely not going to happen. But Brandon Aiyuk needs to portray that he has control of the situation in some sort of fashion, and this is his way of doing it. Okay, at least in the court of public opinion, he needs to put that out there and kind of press his thumb in on the 49ers a little bit. The best way that he knows how, kind of similar to the way that Debo did. Now, none of this means he's going anywhere. All right, let's be clear about that. Also, the way that I read the situation is the 49ers are going to try to work out a deal. Now, they are in talks early. They said that they would try to work out something early and talk with him as soon as free agency is ended. Well, free agency technically never ends, but the first major wave is over. So the 49ers, I'm sure, are trying to figure out what is the asking price of Brandon Aiyuk? Is there any wiggle room? And the reason they're trying to do that early versus waiting until after the draft is because if they feel like Brandon Aiyuk is going to be unreasonable and is not going to acquiesce at all to what they feel like he is worth, maybe they can decipher early on and say, hey, this just is not going to work. We don't want to go down the path of franchise tagging him and making him play through his fifth-year option and the holdouts and all of the distractions in a year that we're trying to win it. Let's trade him going into the draft and get the best possible haul we can get and move on and go from there. That's a possibility. All of that is possible. That's what I think is happening right now. They're trying to gauge that. Now, ultimately, my opinion is they are going to work something out. They're not going to have it worked out before the draft, but they're going to have a good feel of where he wants to be. They're going to feel like that's a spot where they're willing to meet him. They will go into the draft. We are going to be on trade watch all the way through probably pick 22-ish. And then nothing's going to happen. And Brandon Aiyuk will stay a San Francisco 49er and sign a long-term contract this offseason. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. But at the very least, we need to know all the information that is out there, who is talking, what they're saying, and try to decipher what we think is real and what's not. Okay? So that's where it stands now. You are completely caught up on the Brandon Aiyuk situation as it stands at this moment. And you're exactly right. It's a high stakes game of chicken. That's literally what we're doing. Hey, what's up, Marco? I was just talking about you, man. Had your tweet up there. So Cosmos says the 49ers have the upper hand in this deal. 49ers should keep it cool, but Brandon Aiyuk needs to be patient. Absolutely. Absolutely. They have the upper hand. There is no question about that. They can make this as painful as they want for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, again, I don't think they're going to do that, but they certainly could. They could do that. I don't think they will, though. I think they're going to get it figured out, and he'll sign during the offseason at some point. He will. Thank you, Marco. All right. Now that we've got the Brandon Aiyuk situation out of the way, let's go into the Ask Me Anything portion. So before you just start firing off things, I will do my best to keep up with what's going on in the chat. But I did ask the question on the community tab a couple days ago, just like I did last time. But instead of doing a pre-recorded video, I'll do it live because I think it's more fun that way. It's more fun to interact. You guys can react to the questions that are being asked. You can react to my answers, and you can ask questions of your own. Now, I would assume most of the questions are going to be 49er related. That's what this channel is about. But for me, when I look at a sense of community and building that community long-term on YouTube, I think, and it's very hard to do this, and people have pointed this out, very early on in this channel, I would say up until about 10, 12,000 subs, almost every comment was liked after the fact on the YouTube channel. And I would say hundreds of comments during live streams were pulled up on screen. Now, as things grow, it makes it very hard to do that, right? It's a good problem to have. But at the same time, I want to respect the fact that there is that core group that has kind of been here since the beginning. And also, I know that if there's somebody that I watch and subscribe to, if they interact with me, that makes me feel like a sense of their community or a part of their community. And so that's kind of the feeling that I want to gather. I know it's impossible to talk to everybody all the time, but this is kind of a fun way to get out there and bring the community closer within Last Second Sports. So that's really the whole point of doing these shows. I know it's not 49er related, so if you want to bounce, totally understand. I want to be respectful of everybody's time and let you know exactly what the second half of this is going to look like. All right. Okay. Starting a couple questions here. Couple questions. And then hey, not today. Not today. I wasn't. Sure wasn't. Weird how I'm here by myself and I was on time. You don't find that interesting? You don't find that interesting? I'm just saying, brother Bob. Just saying. All right. Let me hold on a second. Let me move this over here. And then we will go like this. Okay. Here we go. So this was the post I made 3 days ago. Ask me anything. Hi, George. Let's see what comments we got. All right. Raven Illusion says, favorite comedy movies. I got to go the ones that I quote the most, which is Zoolander #1. I love Zoolander. And what's funny about Zoolander is the first time I watched the movie, I thought it was so stupid. I didn't get most of what was happening. It wasn't funny to me. I didn't like it. And then somebody told me, it was like Napoleon Dynamite, same thing. And somebody told me you have to watch it a second time. Just go into it with an open mind and watch it a second time. It's probably my favorite comedy movie. That I like Office Space. So the movies that I quote the most, Dumb and Dumber, those are the ones that I would say are my favorites. James says, favorite moment or moments of the Niners season can be the off season last year as well. I would say attending training camp was super fun and meeting a lot of the other content creators and people that follow me and support me. That was a ton of fun. Going to the season opener in Pittsburgh was great. The people of Pittsburgh were fantastic people. The city was way more beautiful than I ever expected. And NFC Championship. I mean, that was one for the history books. So absolutely NFC Championship. What's Brother Bob saying? Hold on. Brother Bob from the top rope. What was the question? Or comment? Yeah. I don't see what he's saying. I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Hey, by the way, yes, super bad. Absolutely. Absolutely one of the best. For sure. For sure. I love Superbad. Good call. I wasn't thinking about that one. Very, very good call. Okay. Favorite moment. Okay. The prodigal. I'll go prodigal. Rapper says, can you talk about the equipment you use to produce your shows? What software do you edit sound before releasing? Pro Tools. Just curious as to what tech you use. So StreamYard is what I use to stream. It's also what I use to record the videos. StreamYard's super, super easy. OBS is better. People probably don't even know what most of this is, but OBS is better, but it's a software on your computer and it's a lot more difficult to use. But ultimately, you can get a better presentation style to your show. StreamYard is very easy. And if you're having people on your show, and I do most of the time, guests or call-ins or whatever, it's a lot easier to run it through StreamYard than it is something like OBS. Mic-wise, I use the Logitech Blue Sona. It's an XLR mic. And then camera-wise, I have a Sony ZV-E10. So hopefully that answers your questions. Mel Miller Shoots says, what goes into choosing who you will have on weekly shows? I think most of it is like just who do you vibe with? Like you do shows with people and some people you vibe with, some people you don't. And it's nothing personal, but sometimes your personalities just don't match up. And what I find is the shows that I do weekly are people that I talk to on a regular basis, people that I've started to call friends. You know, Grant, obviously weekly show, Vish, Coach I talk to daily, Ryan, Sunil. So those are, for me, like, if I can call you a friend and also we can argue over the phone and debate and have a good time without like getting heated, those are the people that I'm usually going to stream with. So yeah, that's usually it. And now, if you're talking behind enemy lines, I scout those people out. I scout all those people out. I watch some of their segments. I make sure that they have it together, that they have some sort of presence on camera. Now, sometimes my original guests fall through and I'm scrambling, but for the most part, I would say the behind enemy lines guests have been phenomenal. I've liked pretty much all of them. Outside of the Philadelphia dude, that dude didn't pay up on his bet. So I can't respect that. But other than that, yeah. Eric says, if you could change any roster move from the last 10 years, what would it be? Draft picks? Oh, this is easy. Don't trade up to 3 and draft a quarterback. Easy. I mean, in hindsight, looking back at it, and it's funny because I remember saying this to Grant. I said, statistically, all of these guys, except for one, are going to be busts. Like, none of them are going to pan out. Now, the hope was that maybe you could get lucky and 2 of them would pan out, or, even better, 3, what have you. But the reality always was that one guy at most usually pans out big time in these drafts. Now, it doesn't mean that these guys can't stick around for a long time and be backups or spot starters or what have you. But usually the average is one guy. And sometimes it's none. We saw that, a couple years ago. We've seen this happen. And we might be seeing that with the 2021 draft. Really, we'll see how Lawrence does. But trading up to number 3, they could have taken Wilson, Fields, Mack. They took Trey. Like, none of it would have worked out. None of it. I think Mack might have worked out short term, but ultimately, I just think he's kind of a punk. So I wouldn't have liked him on the team. So that would easily be it. Jonathan says Kittle. All right. Respect says Kittle, Mr. Take Your Girl. All right. Hi, George. That's what I said. What time? Today, right now. That's when we're going to do it. Gomer says, if you could remove the salary cap for NFL teams, would you do it and institute a luxury tax like the MLB, or would you keep the salary cap? I'd keep the salary cap. I love it. MLB, it's just, who are the richest teams? Who are willing to pay extra money? I don't like that. I would hate for my team to be at a disadvantage because the owner is greedy, or he just doesn't have as much money as the next guy. No, I would hate that. I would absolutely hate that. I can't stand baseball. I grew up playing baseball. I loved baseball. It was like my main sport growing up. I can't stand it. I haven't watched it in years, and that's a big reason why. So I would absolutely keep the salary cap. John says, if the price is right for Aiyuk, he'll be dealt. Okay. Maybe. Casper says, what do you think of the 49ers philosophy when it comes to O-line versus D-line? Both seem equally as valuable to me, but the Niners clearly value the D-line more. For me, this is pretty clear. You have 3 positions that are drafted the highest. Quarterback, protecting your quarterback, so usually tackles, right? And pass rushers. So that tells me the 3 most important positions in football based off of draft and based off of who gets paid is quarterback, protecting your quarterback, getting after the quarterback. Well, I think by default, the offensive line has to become more important than the defensive line, because even if it's a wash as far as importance goes, you're trying to protect the number 1 asset, which is the quarterback. And that's what the O-line does. The D-line gets after the opposing quarterback. So for me, quarterback, O-line, D-line, that's the order. I wish they would flip-flop it, but clearly that's not something that they agree with. So, yeah. Ryu Ken, great name, by the way. After a couple more of these, I'll go back to the chat. I starred some of your guys' questions as well. I'll go back to the chat and I'll pull some of those, and then I'll get back to these. Ryu Ken says, do you think The reason why the fan base is so divided is because there are two generations of fans. The ones that lived through the dynasty and the ones that lived through the dark ages and now. That's why half only want the rings and the other half is happy just competing. No, I don't think that's it. I mean, I think on the surface that definitely can be a disagreement. I think it is a disagreement, but I don't think that's why there's contention. I think there's contention because people just disagree in life. I mean, politics is a great example. Religion. There's so many things that go into making you who you are. And the internet gives everybody a voice, doesn't give everybody a face. So it makes it much easier to state your opinion and not feel the backlash or any consequences. People are willing to say reckless things. And so I think that's why you have the division. And it's not just a 49er thing, it's just a life thing. Rick Rod says, how open is the Super Bowl window for the upcoming year, percentage-wise? Ooh, I don't know if I can give you a percentage, but I'll answer your question by saying it was more open last year than it was this year. And that's not based off of, it's easy to say, well, you made the Super Bowl, so of course it is. The chances of making it back are hard in hindsight. But I remember having a conversation with Larry, and it centered around Brock Purdy. And he asked the question, how many Super Bowls is Brock Purdy going to win in the 49er uniform as the starter? And I said, do they win it this year or not? And he said, yeah, they win it this year. I said, then one. And he's like, really? So you're saying if they don't win it this year, he's not going to win? I said, I don't believe he will. So if that answers your question, I think that the Super Bowl window was definitely more open last year. Now, it's certainly not slammed shut. They've got a great chance, but I think teams are closing the gap a little bit. I think the NFC was about as down as it could have been, and the 49ers were as good as they've ever been, and it wasn't enough, unfortunately. So here we are. Money Gang says, when are we going to get Kittle a ring? Nobody deserves it more than him and Fred Warner. Man, I wish. I really wish that we could get him a ring. All right, one more, and then I'll go to the chat. Blue Heel says, do you ever think about moving back to the West Coast? No. Never. I love Florida. Lived in Oregon for 35 years. Absolutely not. There's no state income tax. It's sunny most of the year. Schools are good. There's grass. It's green. There's not homeless problems. Absolutely not. I don't think I would ever live anywhere other than Tampa, Florida. I absolutely love it here. All right, let me remove this and then we'll go to the chat and then come back. See what y'all are talking about. Ekim says, what sports goal did you want to achieve in any sport? Mine was to win and hoist the Stanley Cup. You talking about when you're a kid? What did you dream of most? Ooh. Man, I don't know. That one's tough. I think when I was a kid, I always just wanted to be on ESPN, honestly. I mean, I love sports. I loved playing them. I played all through high school, but I didn't ever have any delusions of I was going to be a professional athlete, but I always wanted to cover sports in some sort of fashion. Now, YouTube wasn't around. It wasn't an avenue. And so I figured Sports Center, that's what I want to do. Now, the picture became much clearer once YouTube came out that I would have never probably liked to have been a sports anchor on Sports Center. But ultimately, that's kind of was my goal when I was a kid. John says, hey, Jesse, what's your biggest obstacle in the playoff run? The NFC West is winnable, and who do you think will threaten? The NFC West is not only winnable, they should win it. They're the favorites. But the NFC West is going to be tougher. They're not going to sweep through it. They swept the NFC West last year. Yes, I know they lost to the Rams, but that was with backups. They would have won that game. They are not going to sweep the NFC West this year. I don't believe that. And so that's going to be tougher. But I think the teams that they had to play in the playoffs last year are going to be the two teams. I think the Packers, Lions on the surface right now, Packers and Lions. Hindi says, would you trade BA to the Chiefs for L'Jarius Sneed? Oh, man. Wow. That's a really good fair trade. No. No, I wouldn't. I think I think Brock Purdy's going to need all the support he can get going forward. And I don't think Kittle's going to be around much longer. CMC's not going to be around much longer. Trent Williams is not going to be around much longer. Debo, I think, could be traded next offseason. And his style of football, I don't think lasts long term. So BA is going to be a crucial weapon for Brock Purdy going forward as he gets paid. I would really hate for him to lose that. So no, because he's going to lose everything else, and it's going to be tough to replace as is. Josh says, did Aaron Donald retire because the Rams signed Jimmy? No, he didn't. For those of you that watched that Aaron Donald video, I knew Tuesday night he was retiring. He retired on Friday. He just really was done playing. He didn't want to deal with the hits. He didn't want to put his body through it. And he didn't want a big fancy retirement. The media team put together everything for him as far as his retirement went, and then he posted it, and that was it. Now, the flip side of that is they reworked his contract before he retired. That was in case he comes back, so I wouldn't be shocked if they make a playoff run and he comes back the final couple weeks of the regular season and gets one playoff run in before he calls it quits for good. Would not shock me, but Jimmy G is not the reason. Coach says, Jess, you have tons of support and you are a part of our culture, brother. I appreciate that, man. That really means a lot. Thank you. Brother Bob says, F it. Who's your favorite Niners YouTube creator? Sheets? Favorite Niners YouTube creator? Are you saying like from like a person to person or just to watch? I assume you mean just to watch. Like, who do I watch the most? I'll tell you, actually, I'll just do it this way. I'll tell you my favorite show. I'll put two people on. My favorite show of the week to watch is Grant and Stats, because those two couldn't be any more different in their opinions. And they both are willing to just be very forthcoming in what their thoughts are. And they never see eye to eye. I think it's hilarious. The way they bicker is so funny to me. So that's my favorite show to actually sit down and watch, because they just don't get along. Now they get along in person, but on the show, they don't. And it's funny. Brother Bob says, so you didn't say PP. Is he your least favorite and why? Be 100%. He's not my least favorite, but we don't talk a lot on the phone. Like I don't pick up the phone and call Larry. He doesn't pick up the phone and call me. It's more of a business relationship, and we do text. Like we'll text from time to time, like, hey, I'm thinking this or I'm thinking this. So it's not like there's any hatred or anything like that. We just don't talk like that. So it's not a dislike. It's just a professional relationship more than anything. Yeah, it says how they pay Pickens and BA. You're talking about the Steelers if they traded for BA? I mean, pretty easy. They have one of the cheaper quarterback rooms, and they would pay BA and then probably have to make the decision on Pickens and maybe end up trading him. I don't know. I don't know if Pickens is going to garner a lot of money either. I mean, he's low key been a little bit of a malcontent at certain times, and I don't think his production has warranted a big payday. So I don't think it's the same situation that we have with BA and Debo. But I'll tell you how they get it done. They're not going to get Debo, or excuse me, BA, most likely. So they're not going to have to worry about it. Brother Bob says, how the hell do you think Roger Craig is in a Hall of Famer? Did I say that? I don't remember me saying that necessarily. I think it was Frank Gore. I said Frank Gore, I believe, shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. And then you asked, should Roger Craig? And I said he has more to me, if I was choosing a 49er running back, it would be him because he was like the first 1,000 guy. I think you're conflating two things is what I think, Brother Bob. I don't know that I ever fully said that, but I did say Frank Gore. So you're always trying to get me in trouble, man. Like, I don't understand it. Like, what's the deal? All right, let me add this back in. Jim Everett says, I want to see you go live with Mandy. You're the one that told me who Mandy was, and so I looked into it. I think he's actually really funny. I'm just being real. I think he's hilarious. I've seen like 2 or 3 of his shows. People sent me clips of him talking about me, and I think it's funny. To me, what he does is harmless. He, like, think about it. When you're with your friends, your best friends, you know that they're your best friends because you bust each other's balls on a regular basis. Like, that's what a guy friendship is all about. Now, you're there for each other if things ever go down, but really, it's just a trash talking fest. Now, obviously, I don't know Mandy. I don't know anything about him, but I look at what he does as kind of that, and I think he's actually really funny. So, Alejandro says, when is the next time you see the Niners winning the Super Bowl? Hopefully this year. Hopefully I'm wrong, but if I'm just being real, do they pay Brock Purdy? I mean, that's going to change my answer in a big way. If they give him $50 million in a 5-year deal, then at least 6 years. I don't know. It could be a while. 150 GT says, I really want the Niners to draft a corner with our 31st pick. Who is the best corner you think will be available? And if you think the Niners are even looking at corners. Okay, let me pull up my phone. I've got some draft guys in here. Really? I hope that they're not looking at corner at pick 31. If they're going to go secondary, I would say go with Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota, safety. I think it might be a little bit more of a need. And also, he's clearly the best safety, at least at this moment, in my opinion. And I think corner is deep, but like round 3, round 4 deep. So I would say I don't necessarily have a corner that I'm looking at in round 1. And I hope that the Niners aren't looking that direction either. I hope that they're looking at tackle. But if all the tackles are gone, I would say go Nubin. Let me give you some names for some corners in round 3, 4. Okay. You've got Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon. All of these guys, by the way, played basically like 50% zone this year and 50% man, which means you can play them in anything. You can make them man corners, you can make them zone, and the 49ers will mix things up. A lot of times what you get is you get these guys that play in heavy zone defenses, and then they come into the NFL and they're asked to play man and it doesn't work, or vice versa. And zone is a skill. Like, you assume that just because somebody can play man that they would be, hey, they're locked down in man, they're going to be good in zone. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And certainly if you're like really good in zone, Richard Sherman, not necessarily the best man coverage corner. And that's okay. It's a different skill set. But these corners in round 3 and 4 all have both. They played almost 50-50 split man or zone. Okay. So the 4 names that I have are Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon, 6'4", 193 pounds, ran a 4.5 40. Saw a lot of him. I'm an Oregon Duck fan. Oregon is kind of becoming low-key a little bit of a DBU. They're producing some good corners. Diamador Lenore, you guys are familiar. I have Cam Hart out of Notre Dame, 6'3", 202 pounds. Also ran a 4.5 40. I like bigger body corners personally, especially because some of these receivers are getting ridiculous. I've got Max Melton, who's more of a slot corner. He's 5'11", 187, ran a 4.39. Now, this is the nice thing about Diamador Lenore is that he can play in or out. So if you drafted a Max Melton, you would kick him to the slot, and then you would have Diamador Lenore play out. I'm totally fine with that. And then the last one is Josh Newton out of TCU, 5'11", 190, 4.5, 140. Those are the 4 corners that I have in that 3 to 4 round range. And like I said, the thing that I like most about them is that they were good, obviously, but they can do both. They can be man or they can be zone. So, hey, I'm with it, right? Okay. Mel Miller Shoot says, how different has it been growing your current YouTube channel compared to growing your old one? Ooh, that's a good question. Very different. Very different. I think there's just so much to learn, man. I literally learn something every day. It's why I like to help up and coming content creators as well. I get a lot of people that DM me and ask me questions, and I love to take time out and help them because in a sense I'm kind of reteaching myself what's important, what works, what doesn't. But it's very different. I mean, the first one was four of us and we talked all sports, mostly NFL, but all sports. So really like you got to be prepared. And also it's tough getting four people together weekly. You know, people have families and prior engagements and what have you. And so I think it's just really hard to manage four personalities. And then especially when you all don't necessarily see eye to eye as far as what the vision is. For me, the vision was always this. Like I could see a spot where eventually this could be a full-time job. Now, it's a long ways away, right? But the vision from the very beginning, since we hit go live on day one, was that I thought this could be a full-time endeavor within 5 years, was originally the goal. I thought that that was realistic and a possibility. I don't know that everybody who was with me in the beginning believed that. And so that made it really, really hard, right? I was willing to just put in everything into it, all my spare time, because I saw that vision. And others looked at it as it's a hobby, which is fine, but just different personalities to manage. So now that it's like me and I control everything, it's a lot easier from that sense. But it's also harder. I mean, because you don't have people to bounce ideas off of. Like everything goes through me. So it's like you've got the full-time job, you've got your family, you've got all these other things that are going on, and you're trying to manage this and make sure that you're putting out a good product. And it's tough. It's not easy. So drawbacks to both, but definitely very different. Very different. Kid Trickster says, what is your favorite drink or food to consume when watching football? Water. And I really don't eat a lot of food when watching football. Like there's a video. I don't even know if it's on the old channel or if it's on this one, but there's a video of me going absolutely crazy after they beat the Packers in the divisional round. Was it 2021, I think? Jimmy Garoppolo was there. Yeah, I think it was 2021. Going crazy. I get intense during games. Like I stand up a lot. I pace. I talk to the TV. That's just the way that I do it. So I don't really eat or drink much. I drink water. That's what I drink. And then I'll stream and then usually I'll have dinner afterwards. So I know it's kind of boring, but yeah, not much of an eater, and I am not much of an alcohol consumer in general. Gomer says, if you can bring back one active player lost to another team through the release, free agency, or trade, who would you bring back? Okay, we'll narrow it down to Shanahan years because I don't want to go like way too far back. Players that they lost has to be Buckner, right? It has to be Buckner. I mean, I hate to like pound the dead horse, but let's look at how ultimately that thing is gone. We were sold that they kept Jimmy Ward, Eric Armstead, and then drafted Kinlaw. They were able to do all those things because they couldn't afford Buckner, and it was like all three of them or Buckner. Well, Ward was gone before last year started. Eric Armstead has been injured the last 2 seasons and is now off the team. Javon Kinlaw was never healthy until last year, but he never flashed enough to keep him on the roster for a fifth-year option. Meanwhile, Buckner is still with Indy and still making Pro Bowls. So I'm not here to say it's the wrong decision. I mean, I think in the moment it was the right decision. I do. Now, they didn't draft well, and that hurts. If they had drafted a stud, we would if they had drafted Tristan Wirfs, nobody would talk about getting rid of Buckner. So let's assume they drafted Tristan Wirfs. That was one of the best trades ever. But they didn't. They drafted Javon Kinlaw. And unfortunately, he couldn't stay healthy. So Buckner, certainly, that is the move. All right, let me go back to the chat, see what y'all are thinking before we go back to some of these. Jeb says, is Rob Shue alive? I hope so. I don't know. Rob Shue, you know what's interesting about Rob Shue? I always thought he was really nice. And he and Grant had their falling out. And so Rob automatically just unfollowed everybody that was associated with Grant, myself included. And that was it. I mean, I never really talked to him since then. Stopped supporting his lives because I didn't want to make it awkward. I usually like to jump in chats and just say, hey, what's up? But I didn't want to jump in there and show him support and have it be awkward on him for any reason. He clearly wanted nothing to do with me. And so I obliged him. So I don't know what's happened to him, but I hope he's okay. I don't wish any ill will towards him. Brother Bob says, who is your inside source on the Niners B100? Couple people. Marco and I talk a lot, and what he shares on Twitter, usually I'd say 95% of the time has been spot on. And what he shares with me in private, there are some things. But there's people talk, man. This is the crazy thing. And I very rarely will come on here and be like, I know for a fact X, Y, and Z is happening. Because I'm not talking to these people personally. So I'm not going to say that. When I knew Aaron Donald was retiring, first of all, I was asked not to say anything. And that, by the way, did not come from Marco. It was somebody completely different. But when I knew Aaron Donald was retiring on Tuesday night, I tweeted out some cryptic things, but I was asked not to flat out say anything. And I believe that the big insiders also knew that he was retiring, but Aaron Donald wanted to do it himself. And so I think that everybody involved wanted to respect him and his wishes. So nobody said anything. I'm not delusional and think oh, I knew. So no way Adam Schefter. And they knew. They definitely knew. If I knew, they knew. But everybody was respectful that he was going to retire. And so hey, I'll throw out a nugget in the video. I show you that I recorded it on Wednesday morning. That was for fun. Hey, I knew. Hey, look at me. I'm cool. I knew. But I'm not going to just outright say things. And usually, if I know something, I may allude to it on a show or I may allude to it through Twitter. But usually you don't know that I knew until after it happens because I'm asked not to say anything. And so I'm respectful. I like to know things. And if I get told them, great. I'll keep them to myself. And then you'll know when I know. So, and it's not like I know everything that's going on, by the way. I don't know every little detail of what's going on with the organization. I definitely speculate just like anybody else. But there are things that you hear. And it comes from places you don't expect. It's family members of players. It's significant others of players. It's grandmothers and parents of players. I can tell you that I've had family members of players email me and tell me things. I don't know. I don't know who they are. I don't ask for them. I verify, I double check and make sure that they are who they say that they are. And usually that's pretty easy to do. But I don't know. People just talk, man. People want to be heard. So if they want to be heard, I'll be here. I'll listen. Jesse has sources. Yeah, you are my source most of the time when it comes to the 49ers. So, okay. Are you talking about me? Okay. Appreciate you. All right, let me let me move this over. Let's see. Okay. Bring this back up here. If you can bring back, okay, we got that one. Flav says, "What are your thoughts on Larry Krueger calling out Cone, and why do you think he mentioned Grant's name specifically?" I don't know. They already squashed it. That's between them. They're grown men. I don't want to be in the middle of it. Mirage Wizard said, "Do you play any NFL video games like Madden? Do you follow any other teams in any other sports or the UFL?" UFL, no. I was big into Madden, like huge into Madden for so many years. And once I started this was all my spare time. And so I stopped playing video games altogether. As far as I follow just NFL in general, I mean, I follow all the storylines. I try to be as well versed as possible on what is going on around the league. I try to watch as many games as possible so that when I look at the 49ers, I'm not just looking through it through fan goggles, but I'm looking through it from, all right, we're good, but how good are we really? How good are these players really? How good is the head coach really? Let me watch the rest of the league so that way I can form an educated opinion. And then, yeah, NBA. I'm a Blazer fan. Just Joe says, going back to the Burford missed block, let's say had Chris Jones been blocked, Justin Reed was untouched. Does the same result happen or do we score? I personally think the same result happens. Here's the thing. Justin Reed, first of all, is faster than Chris Jones, and he had a running head start. I understand that Purdy was flushing right, but I think Justin Reed would have closed that path very quickly. That's why I never liked blaming Burford, because to me, I think the result would have been the same. Now it sucks because Aiyuk made Snead fall down and there was a touchdown, but Purdy just didn't have time to get it there. So, Muick Sniper says, "What did you do for work before YouTube?" I still work. I'm in tech. YouTube is not my full-time gig. Favorite food? Mexican food. Love Mexican food. Chili rellenos, tamales, tacos, street tacos, Mexican food. Carlos says, "What's going to be your wrestler name?" I don't know, man. I haven't watched wrestling in so long. Wrestling name. I don't know. Chat, what would my wrestling name be? Let's answer this one together. I have no idea. That's a funny question. And I don't know how to answer it. What is the wrestling name? Jesse, you don't want to say. No, I do. That's why I ask. I want some good laughs. You throw out wrestling names. I'll answer one more and see if anybody can come up with something clever, and then we'll make that my wrestling name. I might ask something harsh. Ask. Golden Towel says, "Hi, George." Nice. Will Cortez says, "Can you catch passes in the Super Bowl?" I doubt it. I doubt I would catch it on those stages. Your wrestling name would be Flounder because you suck as a wrestler and you stinks. Well, that's not very nice, me. JC says, "Wish he was a lawyer. The guy can barely type." God, what are you guys talking about in there? Who wishes they were a lawyer? The Well, Brother Bob and Flav are both lawyers, so I don't know who you're talking about. Do you remember 49ers' fifth ring when they destroyed it? Yes, I do. I was 10 years old, 10 and a half. It's important. That half is an important distinction. Yeah, absolutely I do. Absolutely. Listen, I guarantee you right now, I could throw accurately left-handed 30 yards down the field because of Steve Young. I learned to throw left-handed because of Steve Young. Like I'm talking, I guarantee you I could throw a tight 30-yard spiral left-handed. Steve Young meant that much to my childhood. Every time I did like a report or a presentation in school, it was on Steve Young or Jerry Rice. Yeah, I definitely remember it. Definitely remember it. The content venture. I like it. Okay, I like it. That's good. Did you watch Canelo? No, I didn't watch the presser. I'm not really into that fight so much. What's going on with Ryan Garcia? That is nuts. I'm interested in that one. Him and Haney. Jesse, wow. Uh, you know what's funny is my last name all through high school never ever was like a joke or anything like that. And then as I got older and got into the workforce, people would be like, Naylor hardly knew her. Like, just, I didn't even get that in high school, but I did in the workforce. Jesse, Max, you'd pay BA, genuinely curious. I would say I would like the deal worked out like the 49ers do, where it's basically 3 years with an out after 3 years. And I think 26 mil a year is the sweet spot. I'd be comfortable with 26. Now, I don't necessarily think I would walk away at 27, but I think once you start getting into the 28 range, makes it really, really hard. Really hard. I don't know that I would do that. Bay Area J Rock. I like it. Canelo's ducking Benavides. Yeah, I don't know that Canelo has it anymore. It's crazy how almost overnight you can really kind of fall off a cliff. And I feel like that's kind of might be happening with Canelo right in front of our eyes. We'll see. Tyson needs to end it. Man, I hope so. Unfortunately, Tyson looks great. He can still move. He's got great head movement. He's still got power. That's not going to go away. But one thing that's not going to show up in these videos is how does a 57-year-old chin hold up for a guy that's been hit that often? Now, I believe if his chin can hold up, he can beat Jake at this age. I do. I mean, you're talking about one of the most skilled boxers of all time versus a novice in the game. Jake's very good. I respect what he's doing, but he's very good for a guy who's been boxing for like 4 years. Mike Tyson, even if he's lost half of his skill, is a way better boxer than Jake Paul. However, 57, you're probably going to take a shot. You're probably not going to be able to handle it. And you're going to go to sleep. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen. But we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. Raytrix says, do you think the 49ers will trade BA? I don't. Jacob says, are you a Christian? Why or why not? Doesn't have to be an in-depth answer if you like. Was just curious. Absolutely. Yeah, I think I've made that pretty well known throughout this channel. I wear a Jesus only hat or blessed hats. I talk about my faith. No problem talking about my faith. Why? Because I believe in God, and I would say just going through multiple religions as far as studying up, for me, that's the one that made the most sense. So that's what fits. Clutch Gene, what's up, Marco? You're there and you're here. It's like Inception. He says, if you could go full-time covering sports, would you? Is that one day ago? Yes, I answered that earlier. Yes, absolutely. I would love to. I do like what I do for my day job, and I make good money, but I've always wanted to cover sports. I would take a pay cut to do this as long as it was within reason. Like I'm talking maybe like 30%, not 50% or 90%, which is basically where it's at now. But the vision is there, man. And I really think you give this a few years. I really genuinely think that it's going to happen. I do. I do. So, and that's the goal. I love it. I love this interaction. I love doing this. Absolutely. The bow tie chaplain says, which O-line guys do you think will fall to us at 31? Give me some names so I can watch some tape. I think I actually answered your question here. I did see this one earlier. What did I say? Is it going to show? Maybe not. I don't know where it is, but I gave you some names. Morgan, certainly. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that fall there. There's going to be some round 2 guys. Like I think Kingsley will. I think the kid from Yale will. I think there's going to be some guys, but I did give you some names there. I saw yours a little earlier and answered it. Zammer, I'm not even going to attempt that one. Says, you look like a car guy, are you? To a certain extent. When I was younger, I was really into cars, Hondas and Acuras and stuff like that. I would fix them up. My grandpa was really into muscle cars. He had a Hemi Cuda, 2 Hemi Cudas. My dad had a 69 Camaro. So I've always been around them. As far as like mechanical, Honda is basically like the extent of what I can do. I can change my oil if I have to, spark plug, stuff like that. But I'm not like into cars mechanically. But I do love nice cars. I love driving nice cars. So yeah, in that sense. Clarzard says, tell us about yourself, Jesse. Forget the Niners talk. We'd love to hear about you and who you are as a person. We know you're an awesome dude, but what is your origin? Man, this conversation could go for a long time, Clarzard. Ryan, I think, deleted all of his videos, which is unfortunate. But when Ryan first got started in this game, he wasn't necessarily doing the 49er stuff. He was on with Grant weekly, but then he would have people on and he would interview them. And the first time I ever talked to Ryan, it was all like personal. Like, what is your origin story? Where did you come from? What did all that look like? I will say, born and raised in Portland, Oregon, lived there for 35 years. Lived with my mom until I was about 8 or 9. She was really heavy into drugs. She was a dealer and heavy into all of that growing up. So there was a lot of things that I was involved in and saw at a young age. Eventually was able to live with my dad. My dad was basically my whole family. My whole mom's side of my family is they self-medicate through drugs and alcohol. A lot of bipolar people on that side of my family. So my dad was like my family. My dad was adopted. He was born in San Diego and adopted. I actually recently, like 2 years ago, met his biological family, which was cool. But my dad passed away. Speaking of vices, this is why I'm not a big drinker. He passed away of alcoholism 2018, about a month after I moved to Florida. And I've got 2 kids of my own that I love to death. I would do anything for. My whole life is for them and my wife. And yeah, I mean, that's basically the story. So most of my friends growing up, sometime or another, became drug addicted. I don't know what it is, like why I've been lucky to like skate that, but I've never been into drugs. I mean, alcohol and stuff as a teenager, obviously, I think most of us go through that phase. But for me, like watching my family go through it at a young age, watching how my dad passed away, every single best friend I had growing up, they all got into pills at some point and went through rehab, and they still struggle with it today. So, yeah, I mean, I've been blessed. I've been lucky to be around it and not want to be a part of it. But I would say that's a big portion of who I am personally, or have been, that I've been around addiction like crazy. And it's something that is very near and dear to my heart and has just been a part of my life in one way or another. So that is basically the origin story in a quick 3-minute answer. But there's a lot more to that. Kaba says, not whining, honest question. Do you think practicing on the field that the 49ers were given before the Super Bowl exasperated the Dre Greenlaw injury? No, I don't. I don't even, by the way, I don't know if it was the same Achilles. And if it's not, that's worrisome. Somebody in the chat said that it wasn't his same Achilles, but he had Achilles tightness going into the Packers game. Like, he was on the injury report for it. Didn't practice during the bye week and then was questionable going into the Green Bay game. And then he tore his Achilles. So I actually don't think it did. I think it was something that would have eventually happened anyways. So no, I don't. Follow up. Should Jed York, I like Jeff better, but I think he meant Jed. Should Jed York have pulled the team back home to practice on a good field, done all the media from there, and got... No, as long as it wasn't, I don't know that it was a distraction the way that people make it out to be. So, ooh, almost made it through all these. This is awesome. Seven Workman says, was that pick when he did absolutely the George Kittle pick that I've got attached to this? I'll show you guys again so you can see it. He says, was that pick of when he did absolutely nothing in the Super Bowl? That's when you shine and not disappear. Ask Rice in Montana or Young Lot. Well, all right. Geez, man. Okay. Kittle's the most annoying. Okay. All right. What do you guys think of that receiver show and the fact that George Kittle's the only tight end? Does that seem a little weird to you? It does to me. But I'm looking forward to it. That quarterback show was phenomenal last offseason. If you didn't watch it, I would still go back and watch it. But this receiver show is going to be really good. And I want to know, obviously, Debo Kittle, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm a huge fan of. I really want to watch him a little bit more and learn more about him. So I'm excited about that. Powwow says Biden or Trump. Neither. Can I vote neither? I'm honestly not into politics. And I've been asked this a few times. And every time I say I'm not into politics, people are like, oh, Cap, you're lying. You can find anybody online. And if they are registered to vote, I thought I wasn't registered. That was a lie. I got registered in 2020. I am not affiliated with a party. And the only reason I registered is because my kids are in school and I wanted to vote on like local stuff for school stuff. I really, honestly don't give a rip about politics. I don't care. And I think they're all corrupt in some sort of fashion. I don't think any of them can relate to the average person. I don't think they care. And it's a pissing match on who can win the contest, but ultimately nobody cares. They don't care. That's my personal opinion. This guy says, do you think Jimmy G stands and Brock Purdy stands are two of the same? I asked for S's and G's, but you kind of want to know the truth. I mean, I'm sure there's some crossover for sure. I don't know. I think, first of all, I want to say this. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a stan of any of these guys. They're the quarterback of your team. You should support them, right? Now, I do think some of it goes overboard. And if somebody has a difference of opinion and you then attack that person, not their take, like say whatever you want about the take, disagree, whatever. But a lot of people will genuinely attack the person. And I think that's weird. I think that's so strange to get personal with somebody that you don't know over sports. So strange to me. That's just me. Let's see. Anything else that I missed? Let me kind of scroll through these real quick. Oh, of course you do. Hung meow. What games do you plan on attending next season? 100%. I'm going to Buffalo to watch the Bills and 49ers. And I'm going with Dan Mitchell, who runs Roundtable Sports. We talked about it today. I've always wanted to go to Buffalo and watch a game. Like for me, I want to see interesting players and interesting stadiums. Like I'm going to get the 49ers no matter what. Okay. So why not, if I'm going to pay money to travel, which most of the time I'm going to have to travel to go watch a game, why not watch players that I like that are on other teams and or interesting stadiums and fan bases? And Buffalo, I think, matches all of it. First of all, that stadium is not going to be around much longer, but there's a lot of history there. The fans are absolutely crazy. I think tailgating with them is going to be fantastic. And you all know that I like Josh Allen. So it's a win-win-win. So I'm definitely going to see that. They play in Tampa this year. So going to have to watch that. It's close. And then I'll probably choose one home game to go watch. So I'll probably go to about 3 games. I know. Listen, this is the only concern I have. The only concern. The schedule itself is not out, Val. So we don't know when the games are being played. We just know who the opponents are. And you basically can predict the schedule every year, just so you know. Like you can basically predict it every single year of who you're going to play. I would say like 13 of the 17 games. Gizmo says, Jesse, how much do you make from YouTube and how much would you guess Grant makes? I'm not going to pocket watch. I know how much Grant makes. I will say this. Anybody who makes fun of Grant for being a loser content creator, as if he doesn't have a real job, and a lot of people try to attack him personally, I would venture to guess that he makes at least triple what most of those people make. Okay. What do I make? Not near enough to go full time. And I'll leave it at that. But I appreciate the question. Ross says, how are you going to feel if Josh Allen balls out that game? I hope he does. And I hope the 49ers win. I'll take both. I really genuinely am a fan of Josh Allen. I like Josh Allen a lot. I liked him a ton coming out of college. Usually quarterbacks that I like coming out of college or players that I like, those are the guys that I end up watching long term if they pan out. That's why I'm a big CJ Stroud guy, because I thought he would be good. Josh Allen, obviously, Justin Herbert. So that's usually where it comes from, is like you like the prospect first and then you have a take. And if it works out, like, okay, thanks for proving me right. I like you now. So I like Josh Allen. Plus, Greg Pinelli is his quarterback coach, and Greg and I have a good relationship. So for that reason, I root for Josh as well. So I hope he plays well, but sure as hell hope that I don't ever want to go on the road and watch the 49ers lose. That would be a disaster. Like you're there wearing your 49ers gear on the road with 50,000 people like talking trash to you. I want zero part of that. And by the way, in the Shanahan era, I'm undefeated. So it's likely that I'll go to the game and the 49ers will win. So there you go. If Grant makes so much money, why does he have a crappy computer that can't handle his media needs? Because Grant is a simplistic person. Let me tell you this about Grant. He had a nice camera. He had a super nice setup that took him over a year to set up. He continued to use a webcam and a Blue Yeti mic, and he had an $800 camera waiting to be used. And it wasn't until I had upgraded my equipment that he was like, okay, can you teach me how to set it up? And so I did. I told him over the phone how to set it all up, what to buy. And then finally he used it, but it just sat in a box for months and not being used. He is so fast paced and he has to push out so many articles that he just doesn't care. He doesn't care. And I told him, I said, listen, audio and visual is your best friend. People care about that stuff. They're watching you on a regular basis. They're listening to you on a regular basis. You need to sound good and you need to look good. Like, stop wasting it. So there you go. Maybe that too. Camille says, how do you think the Seahawks will do with Mike McDonald? And what's your opinion of John Schneider? I think John Schneider is a good GM. And I think Mike McDonald is the next hot thing at coach. You know, it's crazy. 49er fans, I don't know if you realize this, but Shanahan is basically the league average as far as age for coaches go. Do you know that? When the 49ers first brought him on, he was the young it thing. Now he's just average coaching age. He's like the 16th oldest coach in the league or something like that. Kind of crazy to think about. But Mike McDonald is the new young it thing on defense. So I agree. He does. FYI, I do think Allen is elite also. I don't think anybody who genuinely watches football can say that Josh Allen's not elite. That's not a thing. What's your top 10 quarterbacks from college football? I'm not there yet. I've watched 3 so far, and I'm going to continue to watch them. So I've watched all 20. Here, I'll give you a quick breakdown real quick of my thoughts on the 3 that I've watched. Give you the in-depth thoughts. So I've watched Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams. So all these games I watched all 22. So for Caleb, I watched Washington, Notre Dame, and Utah from this year. I personally don't get the hype as far as generational talent goes. To me, CJ Stroud last year, it was obvious he was going to be very good. I don't get that from Caleb. I get an elite talent, but I don't necessarily know that that means he's an elite player. And it's funny because a lot of people talk about how I just love intangibles so much, and I'm going to choose athletes over guys that just make the good, right decision. And here I am telling you, arguably one of the best all-around athletes at quarterback to come out in a long time, if ever. I mean, you mix in arm strength, arm talent, his speed, size. I mean, he's got everything you could want. And I don't get the hype. Now, I'm not saying he's not the number 1 quarterback. So far, he still probably is my number 1 quarterback out of the guys I've watched. I just don't see slam dunk, can't miss player. So, and I've got pros and cons that I'll eventually post on Twitter for everybody to see. Michael Penix, I watched the Oregon game, the first one, Michigan game, and Michigan State. Man, there's a lot to like about Penix, but I can't get over the fact that he panic throws when he's pressured a lot. I think in the 3 games that I watched him, I actually saw him physically climb a pocket once. That's worrisome for me. And there's probably 3 or 4 throws a game that you're like, dude, what the F was that? So he worries me as far as that goes. Not a lot of throws over the middle. I don't know how well he would do in a Shanahan system, but if he gets in the right system, he could probably be pretty good. And Jaden Daniels, I had more pros on Jaden Daniels by far than I did on Penix and Caleb. But and I had the least amount of cons, by the way. More pros and the least amount of cons. Yet I'm still saying he's probably not my number 1 quarterback because he throws with basically 0 anticipation. And that worries the hell out of me at the next level. I don't know if that's something that you can ever, I think you can get better at it, but I don't know if that's a skill that you can go from like not doing it at all to doing it on a regular basis in the NFL. And if you look at his heat map, he rarely throws over the middle of the field. And there are so many times, man, where he's got a crossing route wide open right in front of him, and he just hesitates and hesitates and hesitates, and then finally he'll make the throw. It was a lot of the same things that I'm saying about him, I said about Justin Fields, and Justin Fields at least kind of has proven that right so far, that that was not something that he was able to pick up in the NFL. We'll see if Jaden Daniels is different, but that scares the hell out of me. That scares the hell out of me. I don't know if he's a bust per se. I don't think that he's a can't miss. Now, I do think the Bears made the right decision. Keeping a guy on a rookie contract, I think, is certainly the way to go. But I don't know that they're going to get a can't miss player. We'll see though. We'll see. But also, like all that other crap that people, oh, he's a diva and he wants ownership of a team and he paints his nail. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about any of it. Can he ball? The answer is unequivocally yes, but there are some concerns. And it's not any of those things. Sean says, Jesse, how much is a basic podcast setup for a show similar to Rogan, you Grant, and etc.? Well, that I don't know that that's basic. I mean, a basic podcast setup you can get in and out for under $200. You get a webcam and a Yeti mic, and that's good enough to get you going. I think in the beginning, that's fine. That's what I did. That's what Grant did. I think a lot of people start with that. And I wouldn't invest a lot of money until you know for sure this is something you want to do, because there's a lot that comes with it that you don't expect. I mean, I got to tell you, I get a lot of hate, and it's in here when it's live. For the most part, people are pretty chill. It's more joking, it's more banter, busting each other's chops. 99% of the time, that's what it is in a live stream. But you go through some of the comments, or you go to my Twitter DM, and it gets nasty. It gets nasty. So I would say make sure it's something that you want to do and actually go through that fire before you just invest in your equipment. A setup like me, you're probably looking at about not including the computer, about $1,500. So before you spend that kind of coin, make sure that you want to do it, is what I would say. No, it's soap and water and lotion. That's it. Rogan used a SM7B. Yeah, I will say this. When I was looking at new mics, I was going to go with an SM7B. I like this mic better. I think it's easier to dial in. I think it sounds every bit as good as an SM7B. Shure is like the king of mics, but I think they're overpriced. Yeah, bro, what's wrong with that? I washed my face with soap and water and I put lotion on my face. I don't know what to tell you. That's the skincare routine. Yeah, there you go. No, man, God, I haven't been to a live event in way too long. Way too long. When I lived on the West Coast, I went quite a bit. Vegas was right there. So I went all the time, but I haven't been to a live event in forever. And frankly, I mean, like football, I would say watching at home is a better product, but I would love to be there. UFC 300 is huge. I always wanted to see Conor fight live too. In fact, I actually had bought tickets to Conor versus Aldo. And then I got insurance on him because I had a feeling Aldo was going to pull out. This was UFC 189. They eventually fought, but at 189, I had a feeling, and he did. So I was in Vegas. I went to the weigh-ins. I went to the press conferences, all of that stuff. And then I didn't attend the fight. And I wish I would have, because you're right. He is washed now. And I definitely wish I would have. So I think he is, unfortunately. I think he is. No, I don't think so. Second rounder is way too rich. Listen, Jawan's good, but he's like Gabe Davis good. I wouldn't pay him tons of money. I wouldn't give up a second round pick for him. I like him. I like him on the 49ers, but I think the league would say that he's not liked it that much. Boxing fan says Democrats and Republicans are the same hypocritical BS. Only vote for my local. Yep. Agree. Josh says, I'm 4 hours from Buffalo. Maybe see you. Buy you a $9 water. Most people would say I'll get you a beer, but you're right. I would be buying water. I appreciate you, Josh. Yeah, that'd be dope. I would love that. Yeah, he's cool, but he's not a number 2 receiver. He's a number 3, man. He's a number 3 receiver. That's me. I don't think he's anything special at all. So, all right, y'all. Went a little over an hour. I didn't expect it to be that long. Taylor says, dude, you are the most real content creator. You are a straight shooter. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I just give my opinions. I don't know. I don't think there's any reason to like gas it up to something it's not. Honestly, anybody that has the confidence to get in front of a camera, we all have opinions. I don't look at myself as special or better because I'm on this side. I really respect everybody's opinions. I love to debate, so I love the back and forth. If people disagree with me, that's fun for me. But ultimately, man, I don't take myself too seriously. I really don't. This is fun for me. Hopefully, it can be full time, but it's not that serious. It really isn't. It's meant for fun. This is supposed to be a getaway. So I respect you for that. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you. All right, y'all. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. I think Larry's live. Go rate him in the comments section. If you go watch Larry, say that Last Second Sports sent you. Go show him some love. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for showing me love tonight. Stay blessed. Peace.